How did your paths originally cross with Jerry Klein?
I would go down the stadium and watch baseball.
This is the municipal stadium?
The old Jamestown Municipal Stadium. And Jerry would be always sitting outside the clubhouse on a little bench, and his car would be parked right there too. So one night, I don't know, I just got a kick out of him. I was talking with him, and he would tell jokes and different things, and I really, just talking to him, even one night, seemed close to him. And then, of course, I'd go back to the games, and I'd see him all the time and everything. And it got to the point where we really became almost like father-son.
Jerry Klein.
Oh.
Probably the most humorous guy I ever met in baseball. Keep it a secret. If you had a
curveball
that broke like a bomb,
you must have
left in the league you came from. 85,000 our scouts paid for you. And you keep on losing 12 and 15 to 2. Why don't you quit baseball? Try something instead. If you're a great pitcher, if you win a ball game, our team will drop dead. So if you're a great pitcher, it's now plain to see you've kept it a secret from me.
Going to renew my friendship with him again, and the first thing he asked me is, "What about Jerry Klein?" He said, there, because Lefty remembered Jerry very, very well.
Jerry Klein, oh, funniest guy you ever met. Character, real character. He was the bus driver when I knew him. And he could tell you more tales and more jokes and put on more shows than anybody.
Jerry Klein, he was a showman. He started out as a vendor. I think he could outsell anybody with no matter what he was selling. But he ended up being the bus driver for the Falcons for a good number of years after that. But he was a vendor at the ballpark, and he was an institution. He really was.
And I still remember it. This goes back, what, 30-some years, but and he had a way of putting the young ball players in their place. They got a little cocky, and we had one of the players, when the guy had got a little money for signing, was down there. He said, "I got a song for you, kid," and he sang it to him. It went like this: "If you threw a curveball that broke like a bomb, you must have left it in the league you came from. 85,000 our scouts paid for you, but you keep on losing 12, 15 to 2. Why don't you quit baseball? Try something instead. If you'd win a ball game, the team would drop dead. If you're a great pitcher, it's now plain to see you've kept it a secret from me." But you had to see Jerry sing. He had a big cigar in his mouth, and it was a great experience riding those buses and listening to Jerry.
A bus driver named Jerry Klein. He was a beauty, I want to tell you, if you don't know the history of this guy. He'd done a little burlesque. He could sing a little bit, dance a little bit, little fat round man, and he'd give you those eyes like a dog that had just done a bad thing to you and look up at you. But he knew some of those old songs pretty well, and he and I used to sing together a lot. Incidentally, he had been the driver for Lucille Ball when she was a child, 15, 16, just getting out of high school. He was kind of the chaperone for her, to drive her to school and everything, to see that nobody was troubling her. So he had some great stories, and the kids loved him. He was well known in every town, and he was one of the characters that made managing in Jamestown, for me, a great pleasure.
1962 was a championship year for the Jamestown Tigers, and there was Jerry Klein. The bat boy that year was Steve Johnson.
You know, if it was just pouring sheets of rain, Jerry, they had a microphone they lowered down from the press box on a big cord, and he'd tell jokes and sing dumb songs and entertain the crowd. They'd be singing along with him, because everybody from the bleachers would move into the grandstand. It was covered. Jerry sang stuff like "You Are My Sunshine," you know, stuff like that. But it was he just entertained the crowd until the rain let up, or it was called, or whatever.
You're He was sort of the jack of all trades, wasn't he? Some programs.
He was. He was like he was the fixer. He was he was the manager of the team, but he was sort of their dad too, I guess. That's what I call it. He just looked after them all.
Yeah.
He had a green, probably 38 or 39 or 40. I think it was a Cadillac or a Sal two-door. There was as much trunk behind the passenger area as there was hood in front. It was a huge long thing. He rode that back and forth from Florida every year. It was, I don't know if he lived in it or what, but it was just about enough room in there for Jerry. I never saw him without a cigar butt. No. Yeah.
Article entitled "Klein Named" went on to state that Jerry Klein, a resident of Jamestown for the greater part of his life and a 14-year veteran in the Detroit Tigers organization, will be the trainer and clubhouse attendant for the 1962 edition of the Jamestown Club. It further went on to state that Klein, probably as well known to sports fans of Jamestown vicinity as any non-athlete, was with the Jamestown Tigers in 1961 in the capacity of concessions overseer. The colorful Jerry first entered the service of the Detroit organization as a driver for the old Jamestown Falcons in 1948. It also went on to state that during the last several winters, Klein has maintained off-season watch of the Tigertown premises and properties in Lakeland, Florida.
Tigertown has given us a fine training facility, number one, but secondly, I think it's brought our organization together, whereby we work together during the spring, we eat together. It's a lot of camaraderie is developed here. It brings you closer to your players, to your coaches, instructors, and it's been a magnificent facility just on those aspects.
Throughout your stay at Tigertown, your performance has been watched with interest by Tiger Club officials and minor league managers. If you are assigned to one of the Tigers minor league clubs, you know that your performance will be checked frequently and closely, and that players who come on fast are moved up.
It was great, you know, of course, with the customers. I mean, you know, he basically brought in the business. I mean, they had good food, but he'd bring in the business, everything. So, but later the Detroit Tigers sent him to school to be a trainer. And I guess he turned out very good to be a trainer. At the stadium, he would, besides being a trainer, like I said, would run a little candy store to make a little money on the side and everything. It was right next to the manager's office. Did you ever see the old clubhouse? Mm-hmm. Okay, as you walked in and you went to the right, the manager's office, and then under the stairway there was a little cubby. Well, that's where Jerry's candy store was. So that was great. He drove up until he passed away in 1932 Plymouth Coupe. It was really cool. He even had a fan on the dashboard to keep him cool. But the thing, I mean, he was, you know, he smelled like cigars all the time because he smoked cigars like crazy.
Longtime sports writer of the Post-Journal, Frank Hyde, chronicled the career of Jeremiah Klein, known to many, many Jamestown people as Jerry Klein. In his eulogy, Frank Hyde was quoted as saying, "Minor League Baseball's active list lost one of its most colorful characters when the big umpire in the sky called a third strike on Jerry Klein, the stocky, slow-moving but quick-witted and often sharp-tongued man of many training camp talents."
He was the ambassador of baseball. He seemed to have a feel for what these young men were up against. He befriended them all. He could be very serious when he had to be, but he could bring some comedy in when it was necessary. He was the kind of guy that would do it all. He would drive bus, he would do the laundry, he would coach. Necessary, he'd let them put their head on his shoulder, and he could growl a little bit for them too. So, he was just an outstanding person. I'm glad I had that opportunity, as everybody you've talked to said the same thing.
From all of us to all of you, Jerry, thanks for the memories.